broken there. I know that you said Hamas has been unreasonable in trying to respond to another round of the next phase of a ceasefire. Where do we go from here? What are the odds you get them back to the table and get these hostages home?
Well, I certainly hope we get everybody back to the table and get the hostages home. I was in Doha. I met with many of the Arab leaders at the Arab Summit. I thought we had a deal, an acceptable deal. I even thought we had an approval from Hamas. Maybe that's just me getting duped.
This week, the U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, gave an interview to the Times of Israel where he said Hamas isn't ideologically intractable, that we might be able to resolve this war in Gaza through dialogue. Let me be crystal clear. This isn't U.S. policy. This is one man talking completely out of his depth. Steve Witkoff is a real estate developer turned political appointee. Zero military background, no intel, zero counterterrorism experience, and now he's telling the Israeli people in the world that Hamas can be reasoned with. He claims Hamas wants to govern and that they've evolved and that they're not driven by ideology anymore. Steve, it's clear that you don't speak the language of the Middle East. Let me be clear about this. This is the same group that raped women, burned families alive, executed children, and dragged grandmothers into Gaza on October 7th. Matan deber govern. What are you talking about, govern? I've hunted these men professionally. I've moved through their terror neighborhoods. I've seen kids' toys hiding grenades, prayer rugs covering detonators. These aren't freedom fighters. These are religious fascists with a kill list. And Witkoff's comments aren't just naive, they're reckless because they send a message that savagery can be legitimized with just a little PR tweak. So let's talk about who Hamas really is. Let me back this up for everybody here. Founded in 1987, their charter calls for the destruction of Israel and the murder of Jews, not just some Jews, all of them. They're backed by Iran. They're sheltered by Qatar or Qatar, embedded inside civilian neighborhoods still. They store rockets in schools and run tunnels under hospitals. Article 7, Sata of the Hamas Charter says, the day of judgment will not come until the Muslims fight the Jews and kill them. That's not a political stance. That's religious genocide in plain black and white. And their leaders live in Doha. Some of them are now in Turkey, in luxury, eating fine meals while sending 15-year-olds to die in suicide attacks. And every ceasefire, a stall tactic. Every negotiation, more leverage. Every hostage deal, psychological warfare, milchama psikologit. So when Steve Witkoff says Hamas isn't ideological, he proves he's never read their doctrine, never fought them, and never faced their terror tactics. You do not negotiate with people who want you erased from the planet. You eliminate them. So, Aaron, what's the way forward? So how do you deal with Hamas? I've been speaking to this for the last year and a half. I have not changed. I never will. You don't do it with talking points. You don't do it with statements from an envoy who's never set foot in a war zone. Hey, are you guys a fan of the Aaron Cohen show? Do me a favor and help support the show and join my sponsorship team. Hit the link down in the description and grab yourself a mini sponsorship package. They start at $25. We're completely independently produced, and every package sold helps keep the lights on in the studio so I can continue to combat that garbage anti-Israel misinformation and propaganda that's out there while bringing you guys no-nonsense, cutting-edge analysis of counterterrorism, the Mideast, and national security. And in just 90 days, the Aaron Cohen show is now the fastest growing counterterrorism and national security show online with over 100,000 subscribers in the first 90 days. And why? Because of you, the fans. Do me a favor, help support the show and join my sponsorship team. Hit the link down in the description and grab yourself a mini sponsorship package and help me to continue to fight that fight. Appreciate you guys. It's not done in a boardroom with diplomacy. And that's what Israel's doing right now. They're going house to house, tunnel to tunnel. And while the world pressures Israel for them to stop, while people like Witkoff suggest they negotiate, Israel lays down the real pressure. And like we say in Hebrew, pressure creates diamonds. That's how you deal with these people. And I want to be clear. This isn't just about Gaza. This is about every Western city where the ideology is growing. You start to normalize Hamas, you open the floodgates. You greenlight terrorism, you give jihadist cells across Europe and the U.S. the narrative they've been waiting for. It's okay to conduct terror. Now I want to talk about Qatar a little bit more. Witkoff didn't just stop at defending Hamas. In that same interview, he defended Qatar. And I want to explain what that means and why that's a monster red flag. Qatar is Hamas's ATM, their shelter, their media machine. The leaders who planned the October 7th massacre were sitting in Doha, drinking espresso surrounded by private security, courtesy of the Qatari regime. And while Qatar bankrolls mass murder, they get to play both sides, hosting U.S. military bases, buying Western influence, infiltrating Western universities, which has flipped all these idiots upside down, and they're avoiding any real accountability. Al Jazeera, that's Qatar's global propaganda outlet. They spin the Hamas atrocities into resistance and manufacture outrage and flood the West with it daily, purchasing those algorithms. And Witkoff calls it a constructive role. Stevie boy, you're way off. And if you're defending Qatar, you're defending the people who wrote the checks that funded the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. I'm sorry, Steve, you're way off on this one. If you have questions, call me. I'll explain this to you and walk you through it. And Witkoff also wants more hostage dialogue. Let me talk to that for a second. Let me make this really clear. Hamas doesn't care about hostages. They create hostages to gain leverage. It's part of their operational design. They play games with names. They delay. They manipulate the media. And they wear down the public. That's why Israel's going bananas right now with all these protests. Meanwhile, they regroup, reload, rearm. They don't get hostages out by giving terrorists what they want. You get them by making it cost too much to keep them. And that's what Israel does best. And that's what real counterterrorism demands. It's not talking points from envoys who've never been in a firefight. Now I want to hit this Western appeasement pipeline a little bit more because I think that's interesting and I don't think I've spoken enough about it. This ideology is no longer confined to Gaza. We've seen what's happened now. It's on college campuses all over the place. Every Jewish influencer is getting paid to fly to Israel now to go speak and influence. And it's on TikTok. We've seen those algorithms getting flooded, millions of them bots, all types of psychological operations, strategically coordinated and released in mass. Protests outside the Jewish schools, the community centers. Look at Toronto. It's falling apart. Terror haven. Being funded, funneled, and amplified. And every time someone like Witkoff calls Hamas a political organization, that fire gets even hotter. We are importing this conflict when you speak like that. And every time you appease it, every time you excuse it, every time we fail to call it what it is, radical jihadist terrorism, then it flames even hotter. What happened in Sderot will happen in London. What happened in Paris, in New York, because of the appeasement. It's a form of surrender. So I want to say this. Steve Witkoff's comments weren't just misguided. They were insulting to the memory of every Israeli murdered on October 7th. And this isn't about humanitarian language. I'm being very truthful right now, brutal truthful, because that's what we do here on the Aaron Cohen Show. You cannot reason with a death cult. You cannot meet halfway with a group that built its identity on Jewish blood, on Jewish extinction. You either confront Hamas for what they are, or you lie to yourself until more people die. And people like Steve Witkoff, they're lying to themselves. And worst of all, they're doing it on the world stage. So to President Trump, I implore you, pull this guy back. He's a waste of your time. Bottom line is you don't negotiate with terrorists. You don't rehabilitate extremists. You don't cut deals with death cults. You fight, you win, you bring your people home, and you make damn sure that they never have the chance to do it again. And those are my final thoughts. So if this episode made sense to you, if it made perfect sense to you, do me a favor, share it, push it. Don't wait for the left-wing loony mainstream media to catch up. They're not going to. CNN's going to twist this all over the place. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think Witkoff's way off base here? Do you agree with me? Do you think it's time for Trump to find somebody new to get in there who understands the battlefield, understands terrorism and counterterrorism? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. It's time to get Witkoff out of the picture. I want to thank you guys for watching this one. Do me a favor, if you guys are a fan of the show, hit the link down in the description, grab yourself a mini sponsorship package, and help support the show. We're completely independently produced here, and every package sold helps keep the lights on in the studio and allows me to continue to combat that garbage anti-Israel misinformation and propaganda that's out there, while bringing you guys no-nonsense analysis of counterterror, the Middle East, and U.S. national security right here at home. I want to thank you guys for watching. I'm Aaron Cohen. You're watching the Aaron Cohen Show, and I will catch you guys on the next one.